it's time we talk about something I feel like is real, and heavy. Spiritual warfare, the attacks that we face, whether it be knowingly or unknowingly. So in Numbers 23 and in 24, there's a man named Balak who caused this man named Balaam to put a curse on the people of God. Now, when you read this story, you will see that Balak called Balaam, and Balaam tried to attack or curse the people of God 4 times. But each time there was a failure. And in fact, not only did he fail to curse the people, the Bible says that when he actually opened his mouth, he blessed the people. Because the enemy can't curse what God has blessed. We see how there are things that God keeps us from that we had no idea was trying to get us. When you enter relationship with God, right? That is giving your life to Jesus Christ, you automatically receive in the military what is called an early warning system. The early warning system was designed to detect a threat before it hits the land, before it reaches you. Okay. In June on June 23rd last year, Iran fired ballistic missiles where U.S. forces were stationed. So the U.S. had warning that an attack was coming. And when the missiles were detected, we were able to launch what is called interceptor missiles to destroy the missiles that were coming before they could hit the base. An early warning system is a system that God used in Numbers 23 and 24 to block Balaam. There is a realm that looks down towards you, and it is sending missiles. It is sending missiles. And if you don't have the Holy Spirit, if you don't have a relationship with Jesus, then you will not have what is called in the military an early warning system that allows God to send interceptors to block what the enemy is trying to do in your life. That he will send missiles, he'll send words, or he'll use triggers, right? Things that bother you a certain way, things that you see, right? Your environment. He's trying to send things that will separate us. He's trying to send things that will damage us. The mission of the missile is to see where can I send this that will disintegrate not only them, but their generation. Not only them, but those before them. Not only them, but their marriage. Not only them, but their relationship. Not only them, but whatever God is trying to do in their life. And if you don't have a relationship with God, then you won't have what is called the early warning system. So for me, I had 4 missiles in my life. That my father, my biological father, is gay. He lives in a homosexual lifestyle, and honestly, I have not talked to him in years. He's been in prison for most of my life. So for most of my life, he was in prison. And now that he's out, I haven't spoken to him. And for a long time, I would say, when I got into high school, up until, man, I want to say maybe my freshman or sophomore year in college, I myself started dealing with just this battle with identity and sexuality, and I began to wonder if I was going to end up like him, so much to the point where I would begin to isolate myself from friends who were male friends, because I had fear, or I would think like, man, am I gonna end up like my father? Am I gonna end up like my dad? And there were times where the enemy will send missiles. I was at Starbucks one time doing a devotional. That's the crazy thing. And someone walks up to me, a Hispanic dude walk up to me, and he's like, "Hey, how you doing?" And I was like, "I'm cool." He's like, "Well, I just want to know if I could join you." And I'm like, at first I'm like, I'm breaking the word down. In my head, I'm like, first of all, I'm breaking the word down. But then I look at him, and it wasn't giving like I'm trying to get the word. He was like, I'm trying to get to you. That's what it was. And in that moment, I said, no, I'm good. I'm cool, bro. Right? That was in high school. As I got to when I went to college, the enemy tried to send another missile. It's just always things that would begin to happen. So now, not only was he sending people, but he began to send thoughts, and I began to really isolate myself, and it drove me down this identity crisis of wondering, was I going to end up like my father? because my father, I always wanted in my life. My father is something that I always wish at times that I would see. You know, some of my friends had their dad, not all of us, but some of them did. And that was one of the things that for me I battled with questions is like, am I gonna end up like him? Right? And the enemy will send missiles of thoughts. I could just be going about my day and randomly homosexual thoughts will come into my mind, and I would have to go before God, and I would have to ask God to release that from me, because only He knew where it was coming from. He was able to send the interceptor missiles to stop the enemy's missiles. So I'm sitting here and I'm wondering, like, why am I having homosexual thoughts? I'm texting. I remember I texted my auntie, um, was a pastor, and I'm like, hey, I need help. Am I gonna end up like him? Like, I need to know what I need to look out for. I need to know what it is I need to be careful about. Like, I have lost really good friendships. I went through this season of just isolation and wanting to be alone. And we have to be careful, because if we don't know where these things are coming from, then what it does is it puts us in this cage and it puts us in this isolation. And the last place you want to be when a missile comes is a place you can't get out of. So I'm dealing with all of these thoughts. I'm dealing with all of this curiosity, and I don't know who I can run to. I don't know who I can talk to. I really felt like I had nobody I can go to have these conversations with. But I was afraid, because my fear was, because I felt like I had nobody I could go to, then I was going to end up in that same predicament. And it led down to not only just the thoughts running rampant in my head, but just me beginning to do things just to prove to myself that I wasn't going to live in a homosexual lifestyle. So you're talking about now just getting in the danger or in the field of soul ties, right? So now it's like, no, I'm gonna prove to myself, or I'm gonna go talk to her, or I'm gonna sleep with her, or I'm gonna do this with her, or whatever, because now I need to prove to myself, since I can't go to nobody, I need to be able to look myself in the mirror and say, hey, you good? Hey, you're okay. And I was dealing with an illegitimate thing in an illegitimate way. And a lot of us, that's where the danger comes, because if we don't deal with illegitimate things in a legitimate way, then we allow for the enemy to send us things. That dude came up to me at Starbucks. I didn't see him. Soon as he turned around, I said, Lord, where did he come from? Where did he come from? Because the enemy is going to send us things. The enemy is going to send us people that, if we don't have our spiritual eye open, we'll miss the missile. So I dealt with questioning my own sexuality. And I dealt with just the questions and the fear. And I lived in just so much pain and just so much anger and just so much frustration, because not only did I not have my biological dad in my life, even when he was available for me to reach out to him, I was afraid to even talk to him, because I didn't know how I could connect with him living in his lifestyle, also with me dealing with those thoughts and dealing with those things in my head myself. I can't even go to my own father to have these conversations. And he went to prison when I was like 5 years old, right? So I'm just like, I'm stuck, I'm lost, and I really had to rely on God. But the Lord, with His goodness and His grace and His mercy, was able to send interceptors, because I have a relationship with Him. Remind you, the people of God were right here. Balak and Balaam were up here, and Balaam was trying his best to get the people. Balaam was trying his best to send something to disintegrate the people. Balaam was trying his best to try to send a missile to blow up. Because what you have to understand too, when it comes to fathers, that is the biggest factor as far as success in a home. Fathers are the number one driving factor when it comes down to the salvation of a home, the success of a home, the success of a young man. If the enemy can get the father, it's so much more work that has to be done if the father if the enemy is able to get a hold or get a grip on the father. So now, not only did he get my father, right, being in prison, or i.e., not being present, but he got him not only not being present, but got him in homosexuality, right? So for me, man, I was just going through so much. But not only with my father being gone, I used to try to lock myself inside of the bathroom. And I've done this plenty of times. But it was one time where I would lock myself in the bathroom intentionally because I wanted to get away from my family. I wanted to get away from everybody. I wanted to get alone. But there was one time where we had a dog and I had took his leash. I remember it was a long black leash. And I locked myself in the bathroom and I attempted to hang myself from the shower. I tried to kill myself as a kid. In high school, I remember I tried to overdose on Tylenol pills. And as an adult, I was just going through seasons of just suicidal thoughts, right? Of trying to take myself out. But I had to ask myself, where is this coming from? I remember one time I was drunk, laid out on the floor, attempting to go in the middle of the road and allow a car to take me out. And I was just bawling on the floor, tears coming down my face. So having to deal with sexuality, having to deal with suicide, but then having to deal with insecurities. Insecurities. I'll just be honest with a more recent insecurity is doing the Raymond Room. For me personally, this is just a journal for me. I'm not looking for a platform. I'm not looking to blow up. I'm not none of that. I don't care about that, y'all. I can't live and not do what I'm doing right now. Like it's just something that God wired in me to do. So dealing with sexuality, dealing with suicide, dealing with insecurities, not feeling smart enough or feeling like you're a failure. I remember, man, when I dropped out of Georgia State, I didn't want to tell anybody. I didn't want to tell any friends. I didn't want to tell any family. Honestly, I used to drive to school still, act like I was still in school. I wake up 6 in the morning, 7 in the morning, and leave the house, and everybody thought I was going to school because I was still driving to the school. But I was just sitting in the parking garage for hours, crying, writing, trying to create some type of vision or something, just praying that God would do something with my life, praying that God would turn something around in my life. It got so bad to the point where I wasn't even able to focus. I wasn't doing my homework. I went from a 3.2 GPA to a 1.6. So now I'm dealing just with these insecurities. And then health. A few years ago, I was diagnosed with something that is called benign fasciculation. So what it is just a constant twitch of your muscles, right? So it's not painful. It doesn't hurt or anything like that. Honestly, you can barely notice it, but when you notice it, it's consistent, right? So it's a consistent twitch of the muscles. I'm just talking about these things that the enemy will try to use as missiles if we don't allow God to intercept them. So Balak had Balaam go to different places and try different things, but they had no idea that there was somebody trying to take them out. Where this took place, certain gods had power over certain geographical areas to change the result of the attack. In this time, certain locations had the ability to license certain attacks. One location where the enemy wants to send a missile is unaddressed sin, unresolved sin that is in our life, our inability to repent. Another place is idolatry. It doesn't have to be another god per se, but your need to feel like you need this, or your need to feel like I need that. Another area is trauma. What grief is in your life? The enemy uses familiar spirits. Sometimes it can come through a way of a family member who has passed away, and he knows your vulnerability to want to connect with them again. So now you are entertaining familiar spirits. So now you think that that's your family member talking to you in your dream, or your family member talking to you in the room or in the car or in the bathroom, and it's not. It's a familiar spirit, but the enemy knows that that is a fracture he's gonna try to enter through. Now you're dealing with witchcraft. And quite frankly, in some sorts, it can become idolatry because you're seeking after this person more than you're seeking after the Lord. Grudges. One thing for me is I had to learn how to stop holding on and harboring grudges and harboring things that happened that I should have let go, that I should have let go and let God. You have to understand too is that what's in your bloodline, what are those things that carry from generation to generation, what are those things that the enemy knows that your granddad struggled with, that your grandmom struggled with, that your mom struggled with, that your dad struggled with, right? For me, in my bloodline was lust, right? Homosexuality, suicide, alcohol addiction. All these things were things that the enemy thought that he can send a missile through, but because I'm in the will of God and I'm in the hand of God, God is able to send interceptors. So you have to find these things. Sexuality for me could have led to a lifestyle of homosexuality had I not had God help me during that season. If I not asked the question, where is this coming from? When you are going through things, when you are going through battles, and when you are going through situations, you have to ask the Lord, where is this coming from? So go to God and allow Him to give you an early warning system so that the things you are dealing with now don't cause destruction in your life later.